The fact that you are watching this video means that I got it right on the take where I said I'm not doing it again. I've gotten to a point, the reason I post so rarely on the second channel is because I'm like, if I can't do it in one take that doesn't need edits, I'm not going to do it anymore. It's kind of arbitrary, but it's tough because as I'm speaking, there's usually a time where about 8 minutes into a video like this where I'm like, this is garbage, and I just stop. I give up on it. There's been dozens of videos like that. And I'm not saying it's a waste of time, but I probably could have done better things during that time. So I'm experiencing a creative block. I talk about creativity on this channel. I've talked about creative blocks before. And I think my advice tends to skew towards the side of just get over it, just do it. Kind of the equivalent of, if you twist your ankle, just walk it off, man. And there is something to that. Like you can kind of, sometimes creative blocks are just fear of getting started. You've got to identify why. That's the whole point of this video is like, you got to identify what the block is. It's not that creativity's gone. You are here, the river of creativity is here, and now there's this thing between you and the river. That's the block. If the block is laziness, if the block is perfectionism, if the block is being exhausted, all kinds of things. If it's just like, oh, how I feel, my feelings, those are things you can kind of write through. Sometimes it is important though to kind of identify is there anything behind that? Is there something causing the laziness, the perfectionism? Like, what is that all about? So that's what I did because after several days of wallowing in self-pity, but this creative block has been growing over time. It's not just like it came out of nowhere, but over the last year or so, a confluence of different factors have come together, because that's what confluences do, to make me just have this monolithic creative block. And it's really bad right now. Last week on my main channel, I released a video, 16 personalities buried alive, which is an idea I've had for a long time, and I actually started the script a long time ago, and I'm really proud of that video. I think it's like the best video I've ever made. And now there's nothing. I have nothing else. Literally nothing in the pipeline. I spent more time on that video than I think I've spent on any video, and just like blew myself out and burned myself out. But that's not the cause of the block, but it makes it all the more apparent because it's been so difficult to just like pick up the pieces and start doing the next project. So I went out to my shed out back. It's actually a year yesterday that my wife and I moved into this house. And there's a shed out back, which I was going to turn into a studio. I still have plans to do something with it, but it's way more expensive than I thought it would be. I went out there to write. I'm like, I got to write something. Nothing was coming to me, so I picked up I was writing in my pink notebook. It was the cheapest one. I do like pink. I'm wearing pink right now, but I would have normally gotten black. But I couldn't think of anything to write. So I was like, let me just free journal, or whatever you call it, where you just stream of consciousness, write down everything in your mind. And usually it starts off with nonsense. Like the first page or page and or half page or so is not like, my first words are walking, school's out, sludge, hard to get going, what is going on, double spaced is lazy, because I was double spacing my lines. So you see, it's just like whatever I see around me. I saw someone walking by, oh, school's out, blah blah blah. But then eventually your mind goes somewhere, and you have to focus in your mind, because when you're writing by hand, what happens is your brain is going to try to get ahead of your hand, and it's going to be like 30 to 60 seconds ahead, which is so far ahead that suddenly you're not thinking about what you're writing, and you're not writing what you're thinking about, and then you lose everything. You forget what you're writing mid-sentence, or you forget what the next sentence you were going to write is that you thought was so great. But it's great because this forces you to put your pen on the page, and you're focusing on that word, on that sentence. Of course, your mind can't help but like go a little bit ahead. But to slow your mind down to the speed of the pen, your mind will then start to be like exhausted, because it's being reined back on a short leash, And then it will just be like, let me get to the point. Your mind is like, I can't waste time. I can't like go in circles with my thoughts. Here's the thing. Let's just start writing about this. And I started writing about why can't I write? Which, I guess anyone in that circumstance would do it. But I think eventually I got down to the bottom of it. And this is, very vulnerable of me or whatever. So let me just parasocial relationship growing by the second here. Let me read to you. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to read to you kind of the discovery, and then I'm going to read to you an exercise I did after it, where I listed out all of the things that the criteria for making work going forward, specifically YouTube videos. Like, what are the things that a video must meet for me to do it, and what must it not meet for me to do it? Because I think part of the block for me has just been like with creating YouTube videos, I'm afraid to make anything. So let me just get into it. I am afraid, well, my first line here, I'm afraid to write anything that I am not reasonably sure will be a hit. And this is a big theme that you'll see coming up. And the thing is, I'm never sure of anything being a hit. Like the one about, the one I did last week about being buried alive, I was sure it would do well. I didn't know if it would be a hit or not, but I also had worked on it so long that I was like, I feel good about it. I felt good about filming it and everything. Next line that I wrote in the journal, I am tired of hours wasted on videos that get no attention. Now, look, this is, I'm opening myself up here, and it's a little embarrassing to read because it sounds icky, doesn't it? To say I wasted my time on videos that get no attention. Now, I'm spoiled. So to me, no attention is like less than 100,000 views, right? And you got to keep in mind that even though that is a huge number, and even though, given the statistics, let's say, so for me, a bomb where it's like, I'm embarrassed that this video even came out, is like less than 60,000 views. And on a video like that, let's say the average watch time is 60%. So that would mean, and that's on the low end for me. So let's say that means, would that indicate 60% of the people watch the whole thing? Thereabouts. Like, let's just average it out. Whatever that number is, even that to me just feels like a waste of time. And part of it is business, because it's like, if that many people watch my videos and that's like the average after a while, I'm going to have to get a job doing something else, you know what I mean? Or make videos about something that makes more money. I'll just start giving stock options or whatever. It's so hard to work now because I have been paralyzed by the dread of wasting time, investing effort into videos that won't get 100,000 or more views. Now, the number is arbitrary, and it actually changes depending on the video because you have certain expectations for certain videos going into it. But my issue, like the real big issue that I'm really struggling to get over, and that I have to get over because that's just like, is unhealthy, is the fixation on view count, and view count as a metric for success, and not just success monetarily, but success as an artist. And I think that this is the major transformation I am trying to put myself through. I feel like a failure and like I'm no good at my job. You see, I'm starting to get silly with my delivery because I'm getting very vulnerable. I'm no good at my job when so few people watch. Few. It feels so disappointing when a video fails because it indicates that the time would have been better spent doing anything else. Maybe not anything else, but at least working on some other video. Now, here's where I turn things around. Perhaps the key is to identify something about each video that makes it worth making in and of itself, regardless of how many views it gets. I am just not sure how to identify those things. Up until now, the biggest thing I cared about was views. Yeah. So I'm kind of spoiled. I was very lucky that I had a few good years where almost anything I put out, with especially within the 16 personalities niche in that series, would do really well, and I didn't put extreme amounts of effort into it. Like I had a very good process going, and it was a new thing on YouTube. The niche was not full of my videos yet. I had no competition really. And yeah, so I was spoiled with views. And then when COVID happened, everyone on social media got spoiled with views. Now, luckily, I have to remind myself to be grateful for, even now that views they've come back to earth in a big way for the, the reasons of the pandemic being over, and, the niche that I'm in, that I'm creating in, has gotten more saturated, mostly with just my videos. And, I don't know how much of it is also just interest in the topic going down. Who knows? But, I knew starting off, you can only do the same thing for so long before it starts to wane, the audience loses interest a bit. But I have to be grateful that I'm still as relevant as I am, that I can still put out a video, 16 personalities comedy sketch, and get 100, 200, 300,000 views. That's nothing to yawn at. But this is the shift I have to make, and this isn't just about me. I'm expressing this because I was spoiled with views, and I could get away with creating for the views, getting my validation from people watched it, people liked it, and people want to see what I do next. And views are like a drug on YouTube, and you need more and more every time. And so that's why it feels like if I were to release a video and get 75K on it, it would be the same as years ago if I released a video and got 10K, and even 10K to YouTubers just starting out, 10K is like freaking amazing. I remember early on, I got 10,000 views in a day on a video, and I thought that was like the most amazing thing. And today, if that happened, I'd probably have to check into, the psychiatric ward. Not to make light of that, but it would be very difficult psychologically on me. I have to be able to now come into a place where I'm doing it for myself, for the art, for the creative expression and fulfillment, even if it doesn't do well, even if it's not my job. And it's a thing where you have to trick yourself psychologically. I have to get to a place where I don't care if it does well anymore. And hopefully by doing that, it will do well. You're trying to do something. You're trying to trick yourself. Anyway, here's, so then I came up with a list of, here's the criteria for, will I do this next project? So if you're going through a creative block, you need to do something like this. Free write, talk it out with someone, where you figure out what's at the bottom of this. What am I actually hung up on? What am I afraid of? Usually it's a fear, or what am I dreading? Because for me, it was fear, but it's also dread. I don't want to go through all this work if it's not worth it. And so then that led me to kind of pull apart a lot of these things. So at least one criterion must be met on this following list for me to make a video. And, when you're starting out in any kind of thing, if you haven't had any kind of feedback or success, these things come naturally because you don't expect any outside validation. You're just doing it for yourself. As soon as an audience comes into mind, things get really out of whack. So here has to be at least one of these for me. When I say it in here, I'm just talking about the project, the script I'm writing, or the video I'm going to make. Does it express an idea I care about? That doesn't really, these aren't in any particular order. Does it tackle a problem I'm struggling with? Does it express an opinion that is not well represented, an opinion that I actually hold and care about? Similarly, does it add to a larger conversation that I care about? Now, those first several ones that I just mentioned those are not quite as frequent because my channel is comedy, and comedy does comment on these kind of things, but in a lot of ways, those are a bit more serious, and they're there. I put them there because it's like at some point those will be relevant, but they're not always relevant right now. Does it attempt something technically that I have not done before? Now, this is one that's a little bit tricky because you like the challenge as a crafts person, right? It's challenging your skill technically, like with the camera, with the editing, with something. This one might be a little shaky because if you go into a video or any kind of thing, just with that, it's more of an experiment for yourself, and I don't know how well it would work out. I don't know. But sometimes that is a good way to start. You know, it's like, oh, I want to try this with camera angles or whatever. Does it attempt something narratively that I have not done before? Or the better wording might be like, does it challenge me as a writer? And I think that's probably one of the more important ones, especially as I sit down to write a script. Because if I'm just like popping off a sketch that has no challenge to me, and it's like everything I've ever done before, it's sort of like, what's the point? Although I did say that if it meets one of the other criteria on the list, then it's fine. But this is probably the most important one to me. Is it challenging me as a writer? Another one is, does it challenge me as an actor? That one's a little less important, but it is something I think about. Is the premise unlike anything you've seen before? And that's similar to, the challenge as a writer, where it's like, this is like just a totally unique idea that I have, and it's mine. Let me run with it. Plus, so it has to have met at least one of those things that I just mentioned, and it also has to meet this next one, which is, if the video bombed, and that's, whatever number I think is bombing, would you still feel good about having made it? And then there's some follow-up points here. Would you do it all over again? Do you trust it's good and that you did your best? In other words, it's sort of like, do you feel the same about it before and after releasing it? Because if the audience response shifts your mindset about it, especially if it's in a negative way, that's like a sign that maybe you shouldn't have made it to begin with. Like if you weren't confident in it, yeah. I mean, it's hard to say because, you take risks as an artist, and the risk could be people don't like it. Now I'm like, that risk didn't pan out. But still, I feel like you should still be glad you took the risk. Do you still feel talented? Now, that's the big-headed one. But, you have to have some kind of faith in your own talent to be creative and put it out there. And to be honest, over the last year or so, whenever I've had a video that didn't do well, I'm suddenly telling myself, I've actually had this thought many, many times, I'm actually no good. Social media, it's true. Social media does reward a lot of very untalented people. A lot of people are very successful, vastly more successful than me, who have absolutely no talent. So then I'm just like, I'm one of those people. I don't have talent. And this video just validated that. And the thing is, there is some truth. If you're making something that your heart isn't fully in, and you're making it because you think it's going to do well, and then it doesn't do well, you're like, I am not talented in that way of figuring out what are other people going to like. Does it feel like the audience just doesn't get it? Or maybe it's like a packaging issue, like the title or thumbnail, maybe you didn't do a good job at that. And not, of course, I'm trash. The video, the work is trash. Oh, of course. There's so many times I've released a video and then immediately as it comes out and doesn't do well in the first 30 minutes, I'm like, well, retrospectively, of course, I should have known it was trash. It's obvious. It's terrible. Whereas, before I hit publish, I was like, oh, this is pretty good. And then lastly, do you not feel embarrassed? In fact, do you feel proud? This is if it bombs. Do you still feel proud of the work? You can't feel embarrassed. And so this is the third thing. Oops. No, I didn't. I thought I spelled something. So one of those first criteria plus the last one I just mentioned, and Does it or did it ever during writing, filming, or editing do at least one of the following? There's so many conditional things in this. It's hard to figure out if you're just listening. Maybe I should put it on screen as text, but I don't have time to do that, so I'm not going to do it. At least one of the following. Does it make you laugh? Does it make you emotional? Not necessarily crying, but some kind of emotion. Even if it's like, oh, I'm surprised. Does it give you goosebumps? Does it make you think, dang, I'm good? You have to have some delusional faith in yourself, okay? It's not egotism. Does it make you excited to put it out in front of an audience? And does it or does it make you curious in some way? And that one's, I don't know what I meant exactly by that, but it's sort of like, I guess I'm curious to see what the audience's response is. Not in the sense of, will they validate me, but like, what do they think about this idea? Or maybe it makes me curious to explore more of this topic, not in video, something like that. Now, so that's what it must meet, but it also must not meet any of these. And a lot of these following things are sort of the inverse, and they're all around the same basic premise, which is it's got to come from here. You've got to stand on it after you are done and after it's in front of an audience, and you can't let the response to it dictate what you think of it. This is like an obvious lesson, but it's something that I struggle so hard to accept. So it cannot meet any of these criteria. I have no interest in this, but I think the audience will like it. Or I think this idea is bad, but I think the audience will like it. It's what's the word I'm looking for? It can be embarrassing to admit, but it's like, yeah, there are times I think where every YouTuber will release a video where they're like, this is kind of like garbage, but I think people will like it. I don't know. I'm kind of just doing the math, hoping that they'll like this crap. Similarly, I can't feel like I'm dumbing myself down. Sometimes, you take a good idea and then you water it down, you dumb it down because you're like, the audience is not going to get it. Now, there is some amount of being smart when it comes to this, where it's like, okay, maybe I am just off in my own world. You don't want to be one of those artists who's just like never making anything that anyone wants to watch because they're in their own world and they can't recognize when they're being, too obscure or whatever. It's not quite that, but it's like, I think I have a good idea. I think it's a good idea for this crowd of people, but now I'm going to dumb it down in the hopes of getting more people to like it. Because I think people recognize when you're dumbing it down and they don't like it. I'm just trying to make something so I can upload. This is a freaking huge one. Anxiety will motivate you when you're a YouTuber, and I'm sure in many other fields of creativity, especially when it's your job. It's like, I haven't it's like, today's Thursday. Usually the last thing I uploaded was this past Friday. I have nothing. So now I have this huge amount of anxiety to release something tomorrow, even though I have nothing. So the old me would have been like, I just got to whip out a crap script and post it because that's better than not posting at all. And maybe in a business sense it is, but I just can't do that anymore. Like, I'm not allowing myself to do it. Now, if I do happen to upload something tomorrow, you can assume that I am following my things here and I had some burst of inspiration and I felt really good about the video. But not every time, but I would say more often than not, the majority of the times that I have just posted something at the last second because I had to do it, especially recently, it never does well. There was a period of time where I could whip out something at the last second with almost no thought and it would do well. Those days are gone. I'm doing something primarily because it's best practices, or someone else or everyone else is doing it, or it's a gimmick that's supposed to increase views. And when I wrote that, I was thinking mostly about shorts because I've never liked shorts. I've never felt right about making them. Every time I've done it, it's been because it's like it's what you're supposed to do now on YouTube as a creator. And it's clear that YouTube wants us to post shorts, and especially in the comedy space, we're kind of sunk right now if we don't post shorts. But guess what? I don't want to post them anymore, so I'm not going to do it unless I'm like, oh yes, this is the perfect short. I totally want to do this as a short. I'm not doing anything I don't want to do anymore. And And that's the primary. If that is the primary motivation, that like it's best practices someone else is doing, blah blah blah, and not because I'm excited about the idea, and then it's a secondary thing like, oh, okay, well, I should package this way, then I'm not going to do it. I can't do it if I'm doing it to copy a previous video of mine that did well. So I'm always looking for the next series. I think that's just smart YouTube. You want to a lot of my ability to keep doing YouTube is because I've done the same series for so long that I have a big long playlist, and when someone finds my channel, they watch, lots of videos. So that's smart, but then it gives you the temptation to just, if you try something new and it's successful, that you just do it again, And it's smart business, but that shouldn't be the primary motivation for making a new video. Another one is the impetus or inspiration for the concept of this video was the view count on another video, like someone else's video. So if you see, some comedy channel uploaded whatever, I'm like, oh, I could take that concept and twist it around and use it for my channel. No, that never works. Never. Or a lot of these things worked once, or they've worked half the time. But the problem is when they don't work, they leave you feeling stupid. So I'm not doing that anymore. I don't want to waste a script. This is a big one that can be applicable to a lot of different creatives. You write something, you'll create something, and then you're like, well, I spent this time on it, so now I have to use it. Like, I have to show it to people. I have to use this, put it in front of an audience. So I'll write scripts, and I'm like, it's kind of funny. And just do it because I'm like, I don't want to waste it. Or, sometimes I've hired a lot of scripts from other people, and after a while, I'm like, this really isn't up to snuff. And I'm like, I had an investment monetarily in that, so I feel like I have to use it, or it's just like money down the toilet. No, you just have to eat it. You have to eat the time. You have to eat the money. That's it. I'm hopping on a trend or meme that doesn't feel natural or like I understand it. That just looks sad now. The next one is someone else or ChatGPT came up with the idea. My problem is that I feel like an idea that comes from anywhere else is better than an idea that comes from me. So this is a big problem because then it leaves me to kind of just like jump on whatever anyone hands me. ChatGPT, I think, is a good tool if you are guiding it closely. But when you just say, like, come up with some ideas for sketches, it's like not going to work. Even if the other thing is, even if it's good, even if someone else gives you a good idea, even if ChatGPT or whatever came up with a good idea, I have to like go to an extreme and say I'm not going to use it because I need to be the source of it all, or there's no point anymore. And there was a long period of time where I paid a company. It was part of what they did, but it was like a consulting company that would look at my channel every month, and they would say, these videos did well, these did not well, and here's what we think you could improve next time. And here's 2 video ideas for next month. And so I did it. I guess I did it for like a year. So I got 24 video ideas, and I would say I did a lot of them, but only like 3 of them did well. Most of them were not good, but I had the illusion that they were good because someone else came up with it. I'm mangling a good idea to make it fit into what I think people want to see. That's similar to like dumbing it down. I'm trying to guess what my audience will like. Just I'm not going to do that anymore. At least not as the primary thing. If this video was mildly successful, I would dread making more like it. So it's weird because I also said don't make a video just because the first one is successful. But this one is like, sometimes I've made a video and it did well, and then I'm like, well, let me just follow it up and whatever. And I'm like, I really don't want to. I don't want to follow it up, but I'll still go through with it because as a YouTuber, you feel like you can't you feel like a gatherer. I see low-hanging fruit of views and I can't leave it hanging there. I've got to take it. But it just leaves you feeling kind of stupid. If this video gets under whatever view threshold feels right or wrong, I will feel embarrassed for having made it. This is a big one. Like that, so many times, like I mentioned earlier in the video, I felt embarrassed after releasing a video because it didn't do well. And there are videos that I have released where they didn't do well, and I was like, that doesn't bother me. I feel proud of the video. Like a few weeks ago, I released the Misfits superhero video, and it bombed by all accounts, but I don't feel bad. I don't regret making it. I would make it again. I don't feel embarrassed about it. I kind of knew going into it wasn't going to do well. And I feel like I creatively did a really good job, and there's like a lot of talent in that. And I need to, if I'm going to make a video, it needs to be like that, where if it bombs, it's like, well, whatever. And then this one I put a star next to, if this video bombs, I will feel as though my time would have been better spent doing something else. This is the big thing, because effort is the big problem. That's the source of my creative block, is I don't want to put effort into things that are just wastes of time. And to me, like that superhero video did not feel like a waste of time. I don't think I could have spent my time doing other things. My time would have been better spent doing other things. And I think even if I only had one thing on this list, it would be that. Don't make a video. Don't do any creative project if you feel like if it bombs or if no one even ever saw it, that it would be a waste of your time. There is nothing artistically challenging about this. That's that one, maybe is fudgeable, because sometimes you have something that's really funny, a good idea. You're like, oh man, this is great. I'm having fun doing it. It's not artistically challenging, but. And then likewise to the previous one, I am afraid of putting too much effort into this. That's just a big one, because so many times in the middle of filming a video or something, I just get upset because I feel like I'm putting too much effort into it, and I feel like if this bombs, it's going to be a waste of time. That's a signal for me to just stop filming. So these changes, it's not really change. Well, yeah, it's changing the filter through which I create things. It's making me have to accept that I can't keep up the pace like I used to. I used to release 3 videos a week, and maybe I will be able to do that at some point. Maybe I'll find the way to just, I think once I hone in on my voice and what I'm interested in writing, maybe I'll be able to do that 3 times a week. But for now, I have to accept that my creative process is very slow, and like the ideas that come to me that are good enough to interest me to do them, they don't come around that frequently. And it doesn't mean I should be lazy and sit on my laurels or whatever, but because you can, it still means I have to sit down and work, brainstorm, think, consume inspiration, and feed my brain and all of that stuff. Be on the lookout, observant for those ideas, always, trying to move things forward a little bit, but not putting myself through this emotional tailspin of being stressed because I'm not working, and then not being able to work because I'm stressed and I can't think straight anymore. Because that's sort of what's been going on for several weeks, is that it'll be like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and I'll feel like I've gotten really nothing done today, and then I'll just get so upset about it that I can't do anything else. And I feel much better when I just accept, nothing happened today. Like I'm just moving things forward at the pace that I need to right now. Like having that ability as an artist to tell yourself, like, it's okay. Like sure, grinding, there's a time for that. Like there is a time for being the workman, the crafts person who is just like putting in tireless hours. But there's also a time for just like, I gotta let the field lie fallow for a season. I gotta like just take the foot off the gas and let my brain rest, let the creative part do whatever, let the river flow over me. So that's what I'm going through. Wanted to share it with you. Hope it helps out.